So good morning, everybody, and you're very welcome to this Business in the Community event, of course, exploring all things apprenticeships as part of Apprenticeship Week. So thanks so much. I know we're just a little bit ahead of schedule, so many of us are joining or just tuning in. So thank you to all of the local companies and employers who are joining us today. This morning, we are hoping to provide a bit more of an insight and perhaps clarification to you about how apprenticeships actually work, how they can help your business attract, develop, and even retain talent. And we'll be hearing all about the support that's available if you do decide to go down the apprenticeship route. Today, as you can see, we're joined by a number of great speakers and panelists who will be here to answer your questions if they can. And Sarah from Business in the Community, give us a wave, Sarah. Yes, Sarah will be moderating your questions if you want to use the chat function. So any burning questions, any, what are the biggest challenges? What do you do about funding? Anything like that, please send them in and Sarah will moderate those. Another little bit of housekeeping, we have 4 handouts to accompany this morning's webinar, which runs to 11 o'clock. You can download those now, but there will be a follow-up email sent to all attendees today. So don't worry if you didn't get a chance, we will include those handouts in the follow-up email. There will also be a survey at the end, always really important to us to get your feedback and your evaluation on what was useful and what we could perhaps do better. Always a great idea if you can to perhaps do that and fill in that survey straight away, because if you're like me, it'll be one of those things you want to do and you forget about, but it's so vital that we can have that feedback. So as I said, we've got some super speakers this morning. We're delighted that so many people are joining us today. And what we're going to do now is hand over to our first speaker this morning. We're delighted to welcome a huge advocate of apprenticeships, Gordon Parks, who's the HR Director of NIE Networks. And Gordon has overall responsibility for NIE Networks' award-winning apprenticeship scheme.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Sarah. Nice to see you all virtually. The big benefit, I believe, of the virtual screen is that there is in most platforms, I haven't found it on this one, unfortunately, an enhance your image function, which is very, very good at removing wrinkles, I've found. Haven't found it on this one this morning, unfortunately, so far, but lovely to see you all virtually. So we're, as an organisation, very much delighted to be involved in this important event organised by Business in the Community in partnership with Workplus to discuss the value of apprenticeships. And looking at the backgrounds of the expert panelists and the delegate list, we've got a lot of very knowledgeable people involved. So my role is to set the scene, first of all, before the discussions later on. I'm going to focus on 3 key areas: the value of apprenticeships for businesses, starting with my own business, the value for the economy, and the value for the individual. My role, my official role is HR Director, responsible for the apprenticeships, but I have an unofficial nickname that all the apprentices have given me, and I'm nicknamed Dipshit. And that's the acronym for Director for Investing in People for Special High Intensity Training, and that's where the shit comes from, Special High Intensity Training. So I have affectionately been nicknamed Dipshit. Now, there's probably a well-known politician in Downing Street could also be given that nickname at the moment, but I don't mind it because it keeps me in my place, and it's a very useful way to get a bit of humour into our discussions with our apprentices. And we've had an apprenticeship program in place for 50 years. It's the foundation of our business. And when we show our organogram to all new apprentices, again, they put me in my place. They say to me, you have a diagram up there and you're telling us the apprenticeship program is the most important part of the company, and yet it's at the bottom. And my answer to them is, no, it's not at the bottom. The apprenticeship program is the foundation, and it's the foundation on which our business is built. And we all know that if something's not built on a good foundation, that it doesn't last very long. So the reason we've been a successful organization is because we have a very strong foundation through our apprenticeship program. And it has evolved over time. We've made lots of mistakes. The key balance nowadays is to ensure you have the right practical experience, academic experience, and life skills. Those three things are core to any successful apprenticeship. And the on-the-job aspect is really important now, because it used to take us, people used to make tea back 20 years ago. You made tea for the first 2 years and you followed somebody around, you just watched them. But now within 6 months, you're out, you're on the job, and you're contributing, and you're learning absolutely every day new life skills in addition to practical skills. So our current approach and structure has been refined over many years. That's been done in partnership with the local further education colleges, with Workplus, and with the department, who provide very good funding for apprenticeships here in Northern Ireland, which we encourage many employers to look at. So the reason for the success and impact of our apprenticeship in our business is there are many of them, and I just want to focus on a couple of them. First of all, when we bring on an apprentice, we recruit somewhere between 15 and 40 per year, and that's aligned to the number of people we would have retiring each year. So as an individual retires, they're replaced by an apprentice, and we can't just suddenly wait till the person's retiring. There's always a pipeline, and that pipeline is usually 3 to 5 years, and an apprenticeship normally lasts 3 years. 96% of our apprentices stay with us, and they have a career, and they become what we affectionately call lifers, and they end up with us 30 or 40 years until retirement. That's one of the big factors that we believe is important. We're not just taking on someone for their apprenticeship, we're taking them on for a career. Second thing is that our apprentices have the opportunity to progress beyond their current role. Once they qualify, they can become then technicians, team managers, and ultimately directors. Our program for our apprenticeships is called No Limits. And in fact, 40% of our current management team have come through our apprenticeship program, and our current head of technical training came through our apprenticeship program. So another factor is that through our apprenticeship program, particularly in the last 8 years, we have managed to improve our productivity by 18%. Because what we're finding with the digital era, young people coming through can teach all of us lessons. And a lot of stuff that we used to do manually and paperwork based, it's now on iPads, and it's on various technological platforms and digital platforms. Who's leading the way on that? Our apprentices. So we've increased productivity by 18%. We used to have an army of people processing paperwork systems. It's now all in one centralized digital platform, all driven by our apprenticeship program. So there's huge innovation and huge importance in terms of the apprenticeship driving better productivity. So ours has improved by 18% in the last 8 years. Our employee engagement index is 81%, and it used to be 37%. That's the amount by which employees feel committed to want to stay with us. And our engagement index has a great impact, because we're retaining 97% of our people, which is, in these days where it's a very competitive market, is a very strong figure. Also, our apprentice absence is 0.9%. They virtually never take any time off. Even despite COVID, we've managed, and with lots of young people affected with COVID, we've managed to retain our absence levels and within our apprenticeship population at 0.9%, which again demonstrates the commitment. And 35% of our recent intakes, and what is a very dominated male environment, 35% of our recent intakes have been female. Now, those are just some of the factors that led to us achieving very recently the UK award for the best apprenticeship across all sectors. And that was not an easy award to win, but that's all credit to our training program and to our apprentices. And it's not just us that are measuring this success. What's been seen in a recent survey is those employers that have apprenticeships, 78% of those employers say that apprentices are increasing their productivity. 78% of those that have apprenticeships. But here's the problem, only 10% of employers in Northern Ireland actually have apprenticeships. So the real challenge is to get many more employers using and utilizing this valuable way to do things. So I've given you an example of some of the business benefits we find. Let me talk about two things in the economy that are really important. Recent research, again, has shown that the impact of apprenticeships in the economy is phenomenal. For every £1 invested in a level 2 apprenticeship, £26 comes back into the economy. That was a really detailed study looking at the Welsh economy. And for a level 3, £28 comes back into the economy. So it's a huge investment. Every pound brings 26 or 28 pounds back into the economy. The other thing about apprenticeships is that there's a difficulty in getting into them, and there's lots of barriers to entry. One of the first barriers is parental attitudes. And in Northern Ireland, lots of people say apprenticeships are wonderful, but not for my child. My child's going to university. That's a barrier. The image of apprenticeships is significantly changing, but we still need to do a lot more. There's also barriers with bureaucracy. If you're trying to kickstart this for the first time, it's not that easy. But there's lots of help through Workplus and through the colleges. Reach out to the employers like ourselves who already have them. But in relation to the economy, the big problem we face is there's a huge skills imbalance. There's skills shortages everywhere at the moment. We currently have advertised 110 new roles, but we're still trying to fill 40 roles from last year. A lot of them in IT and digital and procurement and HR and communications. We cannot fill them. And that's because there are too many young people with the wrong skills. There are too many people not qualified enough to level 2, and there are too many people with the wrong degrees. And so what we need to be doing is using apprenticeships to get people upskilled through a vocational route, and also conversion apprenticeships to take people with maybe a social sciences degree and get them converted into an IT degree using their digital skills that they've fine-tuned using their mobile phone and so on. Apprenticeships can address this for the economy. So we need many more employers investing in apprenticeships, and we need to encourage more young people into this vocational and apprenticeship route. So let me look at the benefits for the individual finally. If you take a 16-year-old that works for NIE and through that 8-year period stays with us, they have an opportunity if they want to go right through, and we have our apprentice to degree program. So by 24, if they aspire to, they can have an electrical engineering degree. In that time, that 16-year-old will have got themselves roughly £170,000 in earnings. They will have got lifelong learning skills. They will have a formal qualification, and they'll have 8 years experience behind them. The same 16-year-old that takes a different route to get a degree in electrical engineering will have no experience and will be in debt of 30,000. So there's a £200,000 financial difference. There's an 8 years experience difference, and there's a whole set of skills that the young person has developed in their apprenticeship in relation to teamwork, problem solving, influencing, and so on. So they've got a whole set of life skills. So if we're just not selling that well enough to our young people, because we need to be out there in schools presenting those two definitions. Here's the degree route, and here's the apprenticeship route. You're going to be 200k better off. What a message! You know, most people need to get that, and I don't think they get it strongly enough. We need to do an awful lot more in our outreach with our schools, starting at primary school. So let me conclude with my presentation with a short story, and it's nothing to do with apprenticeships. It's called Grow Your Own, and it's about tomatoes. And the reason I'm using this to conclude is because there's so many similarities about growing tomatoes and growing apprentices. After many years of enjoying tomatoes, which I absolutely adore, the pandemic meant that at the start of the pandemic, there was a shortage. I couldn't get tomatoes in any of my local supermarkets for 6 weeks. I was totally distraught because I love tomatoes. So needs must. And first thing is I did my research on how you grow them. And that's what you do when you're trying to grow apprentices, do your research. The next thing was I reached out to those that knew what they were doing, my friends that were already doing this. I got good advice. Second thing to do in growing apprenticeships, reach out to those that are already doing it. Thirdly, I invested wisely. I didn't go and spend thousands of pounds on a big fancy greenhouse. I bought a little plastic thing out of B&Q, and they're available from other stores, by the way. And I invested wisely. And again, do that in apprenticeships. It's not an expensive way to get in. You don't need a fancy training center. You can do this on site. The third thing I then did was get going. And so I got up and I bought the seeds and I grew them. And the thing that I realized was, and it's the same with apprenticeships, there's no instant result. It takes time and patience, and mistakes get made. But over time, I managed to be successful. And when I reflected on growing that whole process of growing tomatoes, I thought to myself, you know, there's so many similarities. Growing your own in relation to me doing this for the first time and growing apprenticeships, the following here are the things that are very important that you realize. First of all, once I grew those tomatoes my own, boy, did they taste better. Boy, did I value them more, that I really appreciate them. Also, they were less expensive. There was plenty of supply. And the second summer, I didn't run out when there was shortages in the supermarkets. I had plentiful supply. I was isolated from those shortages, and it was a sustainable process because now I'm doing it every year. And now I'm also, just like you can do with apprenticeships, rather than just having one type of apprenticeship, we have now 13 types of apprenticeship in our business. I'm personally now also growing peas, beans, and lettuce. So growing your own is a very, very powerful tool. You appreciate things so much better, you invest in them so much more, and it's a sustainable process. So let me summarize the learning I got. Do your research, get advice, invest wisely, be patient, look after your apprenticeships, value them, invest in their growth, and they will pay you back tenfold. In addition to the financial support that's available, there's all of these other additional benefits. So in closing, I want to wish you all well. If you have got apprenticeships, and I know there's a couple of award-winning companies on the call here, congratulations on that, on the recent award just yesterday in this week's Department for the Economy Awards. I saw a number of very strong players in the field, which is great to see. If you haven't started yet, let me encourage you to do so. And one of the final things that we're currently also doing is encouraging our contractors and suppliers also to invest in apprenticeships. And in fact, we're also now training for our apprenticeships. So I wish you well on the journey, and I look forward to the discussion from the panel and the questions in this important event. Thank you.
Gordon, thank you for that very entertaining but really insightful talk today to help people. The evidence there that you listed has really resonated with me. I don't know about everybody else. The fact that the difference between the apprentice and the university route, that figure of almost £200,000 and a difference is massive. And also the fact that 78% of employers say apprentices have increased their productivity. But the key takeaway is that it takes time. So the tomatoes, and be patient and you'll get there. Thank you very much, Gordon Parks, HR Director of NIE Networks. Gordon's going to stay with us. And thank you, everybody. If you've just joined us today, I know there were a few issues with getting people in. I can see the attendees have shot up from what they were at the beginning. Welcome, welcome. I hope you managed to hear Gordon's talk there. Just to let you know, there are 4 handouts for you. You'll see in the handout section there that you can download and take away with you. If you don't have time, we will be following up with another email, and we'd love you to fill a survey at the end to let us know what you indeed got from today's session. We also really want your questions, anything at all, because it is complicated, or it seems complicated, and perhaps we can debunk some of those myths for you. So use the chat function. Sarah from Business in the Community will be moderating those. But now I'm going to welcome our panel. Gordon Parks, of course, you've met already. We're also going to welcome Richard Kirk, the CEO and founder of Workplus, Hema Showan, Manager of Talent Engagement at PwC, Maria Bradley, who's the HR Director at Gilbert Ash, Sean McVery, who's actually an apprentice with Gilbert Ash. Always fantastic when we can actually hear from an apprentice. Nicola Hayward is the Early Careers and Apprenticeship Manager at Moy Park. And unfortunately, Rachel Meenan from the Henderson Group, HR Business Partner, was supposed to join us, but unfortunately she's unwell this morning. She would have loved to have been here otherwise. But I think we've got a great panel lined up today. So you're very welcome, everybody. And I think if we start with you, Richard, if that's okay, from listening, to Gordon and what he said there, it sounds like, taking on apprentices isn't literally a tick box exercise or, part of a company's CSR strategy. It's a key part of company growth. We heard the productivity figure there, and it's also part of a sustainability strategy. Would you tell us a little bit more on your thoughts?
Well, Sarah, that's exactly what we hear from many companies that we're working with across Northern Ireland. They really have reinforced what Gordon has said. This is going beyond any sort of social responsibility, although that is a significant part of it, because what we want in Northern Ireland are to see our people fulfilled in work. And
So
that,
Richard, if
at
I could
any
just
stage.
sorry to interrupt you. I should have actually said, first of all, if you could just introduce yourself to everybody so that we understand exactly what Workplus is. I beg your pardon.
Of course, no problem. So I'm the CEO and founder of Workplus, and I'm going to continue Gordon's example of the tomatoes, if that's okay, just to build on that. So so maybe rather than growing tomatoes by yourself at home, that might be quite daunting for a lot of people. Whereas if you join your local allotment, you go along to a group of people that are working together and learning from each other, even as people growing, to be able to encourage each other, give advice and tips and guidance. And at Workplus, what we've done is we've developed a cluster of companies that are working together to change how our culture views apprenticeships. And that is initially the culture within their own organisation, getting the conditions right to see those apprentices flourish, and then working collectively to change everyone else's perceptions, this parents, schools, other businesses, to work together to make a real impact and to change this narrative around apprenticeships. So the experience that we've had is working with over 100 businesses in the last 5 years, and we've heard that message come through. This is not just about us feeling good about ourselves for bringing in apprentices. This is about our new talent stream. There are just over 5,000 apprentices start across Northern Ireland each year in various sectors, in manufacturing, construction, professional services, software development, and many others. And those are apprentices that are really taking that next step in their career. And many are school leavers, but there are a number of apprentices that are now at all levels. So you can become an apprentice as a career changer, which picks up on the point that Gordon has made. So we're really passionate about seeing the apprenticeship system flourish, because we know that it's good for business, but also good for our people and wider society.
Thanks, Richard. And Maria, if I could bring you in, Maria Bradley, HR Director of Gilbert Ash. We're preaching to the converted here. You have been bought into this for some time now, Maria.
Yeah, you could say that, Sarah. As a management contractor, Gilbert Ash is a management contractor, and together with our subcontractors, with our supply chain, we have a strong tradition of apprenticeships embedded across our projects and across our companies. And training and mentoring through those apprenticeships are kind of built into our DNA. Albeit as a management contractor now, we would have very few directly employed trades apprentices, as these are picked up through our supply chain. But that said, yeah, when we're recruiting apprenticeships, and we are members of Workplus, as Richard has mentioned, which is great to have that avenue to use. But when we are applying apprenticeships, we actively look for the young person who is genuinely excited by the concept of building, creating something, making things work. Someone who's a good grasp of the importance of teamwork, and someone who's not afraid to ask questions and to give it a go, really. And I suppose in the past number of years, I'm maybe over answering my question here, Sarah, but stop me if I am. But in the past number of years, with the growth and development of higher level apprentices, we've taken on a number of apprentices, again through Workplus, and the platform, etc., is very easy to use and very user friendly. It's been very positive for us. And albeit we've had a mentoring program in place through our placement students and our graduates over the year, it was really reworking that to make it work for our HLAs.
Brilliant. Okay, well, it's probably a good time, Maria, to bring in Sean. Sean, you are an apprentice with Gilbert Ash, so you must have impressed with your excitement for working in the building and construction industry. Tell us a little bit about who you are and why you chose to be an apprentice.
My name is Sean McVerry, and I'm a past pupil of St Paul's High School in Bestbrook, and I'm employed as a higher level apprenticeship with Gilbert Ash now at the minute. Gilbert Ash is a UK-wide construction company with amazing projects under its belt, and I was drawn to the company by the scale, size and uniqueness of some of the projects it has. As my knowledge and competency grows, I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to work on construction projects similar to buildings around, and in 5 to 10 years time, I hope to be a project manager with Gilbert Ash, proudly handing over a building that I have managed. While at St Paul's, I completed an A level in physics and a BTEC level 3 diploma in construction.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
now earning a decent income and committed to working with Gearblash while also studying part-time 1 day a week with Ulster University in Jordanstown to achieve a Bachelor of Honours in Construction Engineering and Management.
Fantastic, Sean. My goodness, it sounds like you're extremely busy, but enjoying that route, and it's paying off already. Brilliant. We'll come back to you later. Thank you. Nicola, if I could ask you to introduce yourself to everybody now. If you want to unmute yourself there, Nicola, it'd be great.
That's 2 times today I've done that. Honestly, I think I'd have learned by now. So hi, sorry about that. So my name is Nicola Hayward and I'm the Early Careers and Apprenticeship Manager at Moy Park. So I suppose just to sort of give a brief outline of Moy Park for those that are not familiar, we're one of the UK's top 15 food companies, Northern Ireland's largest private sector business and one of Europe's leading poultry producers. And we supply branded and own label chicken products to leading retailers and food service providers throughout the UK, Ireland and Europe. We are probably best known for our fresh, locally sourced poultry, but we also, not many people realise this, but we also produce beef products, vegetarian products, like spring rolls, onion rings and desserts, including donuts and apple pies. And in Northern Ireland, we have facilities in Ballymena, Dungannon and Craigavon, but also have a very strong agricultural focus and work with over 800 poultry farms across the UK and Ireland. So a little bit about my role. So my role at Moy Park has really been to introduce early careers programmes to support the business to build this talent pipeline or the talent stream that Richard referred to there across sort of key areas of the business. And through our graduate and placement programmes, we've been able to attract some real top talent to develop to become those future leaders. But we also run apprenticeship programmes, and historically this has mainly been in the engineering function, which has always been a traditional route for apprentices joining the business. But our focus this year is really around how do we significantly grow this offer across a range of career entry points. So as well as attracting new employees to the business, we also see the benefits of using apprentices for our current employees to upgrade their skills. And again, as it's been referred to, obviously with apprenticeship programmes available from GCSE to degree level, they're a fantastic way to support career progression, but also to offer different pathways for employees as well.
Absolutely right. Well, lots going on with you as well, and very exciting to hear more. We'll come back to you shortly. Thank you, Nicola. Hema Showan is the Manager of Talent Engagement at PwC. Good morning to you, Hema. Do you want to tell us a little more about PwC and your role?
Of course, that sounds great. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So hopefully everyone's heard of PwC. We are a professional services company. We do all sorts from accounting to strategy to tax to operations to tech now. So yeah, all sorts of professional services. I guess I'll briefly explain a bit about me and then a bit about the apprenticeships that we do, because it runs quite nicely together. So I started my career at PwC doing a similar sort of apprenticeship, but it was in the accounting degree and it was up at Newcastle University. And then I graduated full-time at PwC and now I'm part of the talent engagement team. So I kind of went down a similar sort of route, but the kind of core reason for me announcing that is that program's been going on for 20 years now, so it proves how great it is, and we've now expanded these sort of degrees into Northern Ireland. So we do actually, PwC currently does 2 apprenticeships in Northern Ireland, and they're sponsored by the universities as well. So not only do you get the chance to work at PwC, you also get the chance to work at university, and everything's paid for. So you get a salary at PwC, you get all your fees paid for at university. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And we think at PwC that works really well because we're targeting the market that wants to go to university because they still get to go to university, but also targeting the market that may not be able to afford it, may prefer to do some work whilst they are at university. So it's targeting such a big market. And at the moment, like I said, we've got 2. We've got one with Ulster University, and that's a day release programme. So they work at PwC for 4 days in our Operate team, and then they do 1 day at Ulster University. And that's going great. There's about 50 students at the moment in that cohort, and we're inviting another 50 this September. And then we also do a tech degree now, and that's with Queen's University in Belfast. And again, that's fully funded. You get paid a salary, you do 2 summer placements, and you do 1 full year's worth of work experience at PwC. So we're all over it, and I think it's just credit to how well these sort of apprenticeships work, because we're expanding so much, and it proves that kind of the proof is in the pudding. We are expanding, and we are very pro apprenticeships at the moment, which is good.
Extremely exciting. And what's so interesting is perhaps debunking some of the myths. You can be an apprentice at any stage, or there are lots of different levels. Richard, explain to us why your organization Workplus actually exists in the first place. Can you hear me, Richard?
Yes, I was just waiting for the unmute to happen there. So we exist really to help employers engage around apprenticeships. Gordon mentioned earlier that only 10% of employers here employ apprentices, and that's true across the UK and Ireland. And it's really because a lot of the businesses in our economies are small, so it's very difficult for them to maybe engage with a new process or a new system that government has laid out, and it can be quite confusing at times and a bit overwhelming. So Workplus helps companies work together, and we're working with businesses of all sizes. Some of the smallest businesses that we have are really
a little bit of a freeze on the signal.
Exciting startups. So we're working with Kairos, which is a business founded by Andrew Trimble, and which is a sports scheduling software platform, and they're looking for software developers and customer support and marketing apprentices, and that's to help them grow their business globally. They're working with some of the most exciting sports teams across the world, so that's a really exciting opportunity to come into that business at its startup stage. So it's to help businesses work together to then make an impact on the parents, young people, and people retraining in the schools. A few months ago, we spoke to the Grammar School Principals Conference. We don't just target grammar schools, but we realise they're a very important factor in all of this. And the principals in the room are bought in. They just said, we need to help convince parents. But the reality is that the businesses are parents. We are all parents. Maybe some of us here are parents today, and it is a challenge to change our perceptions. But once you see Sean and hundreds of other apprentices flourishing in what they're doing, you'll be convinced that this is the best way to go. Earlier this week, we had an event called Meet the Parents. And what we do in that is we put parents onto a panel, and they've come on a journey themselves where they maybe didn't think an apprenticeship was going to be the right fit for their son or daughter. But a lovely message came across from one of the dads. He just said, my son's just so much more contented these days. He's really found his place. He's really content in what he's doing. And isn't that what we want, each of us in our lives? And to hear that come through with that dad, and we've heard that many, many times. So it's trying to help young people and people retraining find those opportunities as apprentices, which is much better than them going and working in jobs that are beneath them. We can help them achieve their highest possibility by working with these businesses that are part of the Workplus network.
And do you actually match? Is that part of the deal? You find the right person for the right company?
So that is a part of what we do, Sarah. So if you think of it from the applicant's point of view, it's like UCAS for apprenticeships. So we run 2 campaigns each year. A current campaign finishes next Friday. So applicants are currently completing their applications on our platform. So it's an online process. But what the benefit to them is we're not making them repeat themselves across lots of different employers at different times of the year. Then maybe their careers teacher tells them it's closing tomorrow, quickly get your application in tonight. And we're trying to coordinate it, and we find that that's one of the scarcest resources here, especially again for businesses that are busy delivering what they do, to have this on top of everything. So we coordinate it, take that pain away from the employers. People apply through our platform, and then in 2 weeks' time, we're going to get together with the employers and then run through the shortlisting process. So the employers do that at the touch of a button. They can filter down to the applicants that really want to work for them, based on aptitude test scoring, the results they've got, whether distance from location, just trying to make it easier for the apprentices and employers to connect. And then the interviews happen in March, and the offers are made by the end of March. So it means that this is all out of the way if you're a school leaver by the time GCSEs or A-levels come round, so you can focus on your exams, but know that you've got an apprenticeship in your back pocket if only you go into and perform in those exams. So it's been listening to the schools and the parents and young people, listening to employers and trying to provide something in the middle to make it easier for them to connect.
Sean, I'd love to bring you in at this point. Did you experience any resistance from your family or friends about going down the apprenticeship route? Did they want you to go to university? Is that what was expected of you, or how did you feel about it all, and how did they feel about it all?
No, not really. There wasn't any resistance. It kind of first came about whenever, because my sister, my older sister, 2 years above me, she's went down the route of apprenticeship as well, and she's working 4 days a week and in uni 1 day a week, so similar to myself. And I saw what it done for her, the benefits that she achieved from it. So that's really what whenever I decided to go down that route, everyone was happy enough with my decision.
And what's been the highlight for you so far?
Really working on the job, the construction project here in London, learning the key engineering principles and techniques, and then putting them into practice. Really has been the highlight of my apprenticeship program so far. The travelling back and forward from home to London is quite difficult as well, but the experience that I have achieved the last 6 months is really second to none. Like,
you're joining us from London today. What are you working on right now?
I'm working on a project in Mayfair in London. It's a Cat A fit out for an office, a refurbishment of an office block.
Fantastic. Right. Well, you know, already somebody has just said you're a credit to Gilbert Ash and to yourself. So thank you. And I think it's always so important when we get to hear from the apprentices. We're always talking about you, but it's actually really, really good to hear from you and your experience. Gemma, I'll bring you in now, because you've talked about the different levels of apprentices, the different opportunities, and to quote you, PwC is all over apprenticeships at the minute. But do you see a difference in retention rates between graduates and apprentices? There'll be a lot of people here think, yeah, if I put all that time in, and then they're gone somewhere else, they take all of that with them.
So it's a really good question. And to be honest, retention rates is exactly the same for graduates as it is for apprentices. I don't know if you'd expect to see more retention from apprentices or not, but I think it just goes to show that when you do put the investment in to kind of apprentices when they are young, they do tend to stick around, because that is kind of all they know, and they appreciate everything that you've done with them. And it does go to show people don't just go down this route and then go to another company. They do have that commitment to the company that they work for. And you would expect kind of apprentices to leave because they do join at such a young age, but they don't, which is good to see in terms of retention rate. And all of them absolutely love it. We've actually got a PwC takeover on our Instagram page at the moment for National Apprenticeship Week, and we hear from a few apprentices there on our Instagram, and you can see their passion behind it. So retention rate wise, it is a good option to go down.
And Gordon even mentioned earlier there about, you know, the benefits, especially maybe, I mean, obviously you work, technology is everything to what you do, but what we can learn from younger people, for those who have been there a little longer, you know, that nearly reverse mentoring that goes on. Gemma, sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly that. Well, I think that was, so we did start off in Northern Ireland using the Operate degree, and now we do a tech degree, and I think that's another reason why we did go down the tech degree route, because like you said, we learned so much from them. And these students, albeit they are 18, they as Sean probably can prove, they know a lot, and a lot of them have been working things like AI. They've been doing all sorts of things kind of up in the sky. So it does show that the students are where they are tech savvy, and they bring so many new ideas. And also hitting the apprenticeships marks means that we get to hit students who are kind of more of the lower socioeconomic background, more diverse, all those sort of students. And that just brings so many different ideas to it, and it completely changes the diversity and culture of the team, which I think is always a benefit when going down this route.
And so wonderful that, you know, you could actually maybe be at that kind of, you know, like Sean's stage or younger, and start to look at those companies that you'd love to work for, and look at their cultures, look at their values, and think, I wonder if I could get in there, and, you know, will this help fund me get a career? And, you know, the earning and learning is definitely very attractive. Nicola, I'll bring you in, because, you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at the evidence. Only 10% of Northern Irish companies go down the apprenticeship route. What do you think are the barriers that are preventing them doing so?
Yeah, I think I think when I saw those figures, it surprised me when I first sort of spoke to come onto here, and I think that Gordon has mentioned a couple of the barriers. So I would suggest that probably the main barriers for companies is really around time and capacity. But some of that is really driven by the lack of understanding of those benefits. So again, really looping around to those benefits on there. So, and I would say employing an apprentice does mean commitment. And initially, an apprentice would need guidance and support, like any sort of recruit that you bring into the business. But most of the time, that apprentice will be just like any other team member. So they'll be working and learning on the job. But going back to the benefits again, they will also get access to that off-the-job learning. So the learning that apprentice receives will actually help them develop that skills, that knowledge in a particular area. But also, this is a really crucial element in supporting them to learn the right behaviours. And again, how we see that longevity of these apprentices is because actually at that very early stage, you're able to introduce what those right behaviours are for the company, and really instill those into their practices. And I would say that modern apprentices really are supported by real experienced providers who are there to support your apprentice, but also to support you. So finding that right provider to support you will really help them to grow more rapidly than probably recruiting a non-apprentice. So again, that sort of balance between those times. Providers can be much more flexible to helping you to build that into your business model as well. But I would ultimately say, you know, that what an apprentice brings, so that new energy, that new perspective, that dynamic to the workplace, they can sort of really help to protect a business from those shortages, and really bring that diversity into a team. So the barriers are small, I suppose, looking back to there, but it's just really actually finding that right provider and really just sort of investing up front to just understand what that apprenticeship programme is around.
Richard, has it been more difficult throughout the pandemic? Did you see the numbers go down? Did people, obviously there was so much uncertainty about university also, but did you think, oh goodness, that's the last thing we need now, is to be looking after apprentices when we've so much else to consider?
Sarah, yes, the numbers of apprentices did go down during the pandemic, but what it did show us were a few things about the alternatives. So those who did get apprenticeships were maybe living with their friends in their student accommodation, and those friends were sitting on Zoom for a few hours a day, struggling to get a job in the supermarket or the bar to pay for their fees or pay for their life. Whereas those apprentices were maybe earning 19,000 as a starting salary, and essentially bankrolling their friends for a while, tying them over, but also getting up in the morning, just like Sean, having something to do with their head and their hands to get out and to actually have a purpose. And I think that came across really strongly. Now, I know universities have gone back to face-to-face teaching, but even still, the ability to learn from people that bit older than you as an apprentice in the business, you know, just with a group of peers, you've got a responsibility that you're building up all those transversal skills that we know are so critical in a digital future. Persuasion, negotiation, communication, teamwork, and those are hardwired into an apprenticeship. And yes, the technical things that you learn in university are really important as well. We our college, we get that, but it's the transversal skills that are critical. But what we did find as well is the numbers have really bounced back up this year. So we're currently working with 50 organisations, and they've created 135 apprenticeships across all those different sectors that we've mentioned already. And even some of the construction manufacturing firms aren't just thinking about how do we bring in more people in the technical roles that we're known for, but it's also support roles like marketing assistants, HR assistants, sales representatives, customer service. They're creating these entry-level apprenticeships. Gordon mentioned about folks in Northern Ireland maybe at level 1 or level 2, and again that means that maybe don't have any GCSEs. These are apprenticeships that can bring people from no GCSEs into a new career pathway, and if they get onto that apprenticeship, they can then maybe progress on to a higher level apprenticeship if they show the willingness and they've got the capability to do so. So it's a great way, I think, since we bounce back from COVID now and hopefully are through it. Businesses that are growing are turning to apprenticeships because they realise the labour market is so saturated at the minute. There's just a lot of churn going on. Businesses are fighting for folks with 5, 10, 15 years experience, and they're just realising that the salaries are increasing and they need to look at a different pathway. And what we're trying to do with apprenticeships is add a net new to the whole skills system, not just churn people around, but actually move people into the sectors and create more people to do those jobs.
Maria, if I could bring you back in there, obviously anybody out there today listening in, please send in your questions. We have 15 minutes left. So if you've got a really burning question, even like, how do I begin? What do I do? Do I need to take on 1? Do I need to take on 10? How does it work? Please, please chip in now. This is a great opportunity. But Maria, while I have you there, and since you, as I said, were an early adopter at Gilbert Ash of the apprentice route, what's your experience been on the whole, and maybe some tips for people tuning in today? What have you learned along the way? What's best practice?
Yeah, I suppose it was interesting to hear Gordon talk about growing your own, because we in Gilbert Ash use that tag quite a lot, and we're very proud of our growing our own. It's part of our company culture. And if we look across our current board of directors, we have 6 on our board, and 4 of those at one point or another in their career were either undergraduates or graduates. Now that's going back a little bit, but so obviously the culture works. And as a company, we've embedded a strong learning ethos that is centered on watch and learn and watch and do. So we rely heavily on our mentors. They're very important as part of the apprenticeship culture. And I think the value to an apprentice to have someone to guide you, to direct you, to bounce your ideas off of, to ask questions, is not only just encouraging and comforting, but it's also very valuable. And then for us as a company, it's of great benefit to our employees who are actually mentors as well, because it gives individuals the opportunity to take the space to look at their own past careers, to pass on their knowledge, to take pride in their own knowledge. And for some, I have to say, we have seen that at times maybe the protective parent side come out on individuals, and also the proud parent come out, depending on the milestones of the apprentice, and none more so, I suppose, than when the apprentice actually finishes their degree or whatever and becomes a fully fledged employee, I suppose, to coin a phrase, and then to see them grow and develop and maybe be promoted throughout the company. We get the nod from some people saying, I was there at the start of that, so mentoring is very important. So I think a good mentoring program with committed mentors and a strong complement of theory delivered through industry recognized courses is what makes success for us in GA, and I think for any apprenticeship program.
And Gordon, let's bring you in again. Obviously you outlined so much in your talk to us today, but what lessons have you learned, and what challenges did you face perhaps but managed to overcome? Have you found the unmute? Are you hearing okay, Gordon? If you just want to hit the little microphone button.
There, can you hear me now?
Can indeed.
Didn't realize the control had been handed over to me.
Gordon.
So in terms of lessons learned, I mean, to me, the greatest quote of all time about apprenticeships came from Ernest Hemingway, the American novelist, who said, "We're all apprentices in a craft where nobody becomes a master." And it's the fact that it's continuous. So even when the apprentice is fully qualified, it's the authorization process. It's the going back over the skills that you've got, fine-tuning them, building new skills, broadening your skills. We're building obviously digital and technology into every craft apprenticeship now for the first time. And we've now got apprenticeships across 13 areas from level 2 up to level 7 to meet all the gaps that are there in society. I mean, what we tend to do is we currently look at where we're out in a recruitment campaign at the moment for one job, and we have not been able to fill it for the last 12 months. We've had about 200 applicants, and none of the individuals have been successful. So what we're actually doing is approaching some of those applicants and asking them would they consider an apprenticeship with us, so that we can give them the skills to actually take the role on. So we're now looking at where we can fill roles, and we're using to build apprenticeship models to build the skills in individuals and work with them. That means that they can't join us on the salary they originally wanted. They've got to come back and take an earn and learn approach. But for someone who's sitting there unemployed, who hasn't got the right skills, this is a great opportunity through conversion. So we're learning to link our skills shortages to our apprenticeship programs and broaden the number of apprenticeships that we have, using the structures that we have in place for our core apprenticeships that have been around for 50 years.
So that's so interesting. And you talked about those conversion apprenticeships that are out there. We're hearing day and daily that we can't get enough workers, we can't get enough skilled people, but it requires everyone to really think outside the box and think differently about their career trajectory and indeed who they employ, Gordon.
Absolutely. For me, the real crime in society, and I talked about it in my way through, is that there are so many employers that can't find the right skills, but there are still a lot. It's not that there aren't people there. There are lots of people there. We know it. We see it. You know, numerous vacancies where we've got lots and lots of applicants, but we yet can't fill the role. So what's happening is, and I'm involved in a number of groups, working groups on this, education. Whilst our education system is wonderful in a lot of ways, it fails about 40% of our population. And Richard and I are involved in a program at the moment where we're doing a collaborative approach across all of the utilities and the construction sector to create an entry-level program for those young people that don't have the qualifications, that would not actually meet the criteria for an apprenticeship program at the moment. But we're developing an entry-level program to see if we can develop the skills in those young people so that they can apply for apprenticeships. So it's all about us as employers looking at where the gaps are in the skill sets of the people that haven't got employment and trying to bridge those and work in a collaborative nature with companies and organizations like Workplus to fill the gaps.
So Richard, it's really again about thinking differently. You talked there about getting parents to buy in. You absolutely need the schools to buy in as well. You know, obviously we've talked about the conversion apprenticeship. That's slightly different. It requires a different mindset ourselves. But you know, back at school, do you feel that the apprenticeship route is being pushed enough in maybe the grammar schools?
So the route is definitely becoming more attractive to schools, as they see more case studies of their boys and girls that leave and then become apprentices, and that's the real focus of Apprenticeship Week, and he has picked up on that already. You know, around this is a week of celebration where we can celebrate the employers and the apprentices, and indeed the schools that have been brave and have really promoted this. And the challenge comes back to one that Gordon mentioned, and there's a review of education going on here in Northern Ireland, and then we've got the skills strategy as well. And one of the problems that we have is that those two things are funded in different ways. So the behaviours about the way in which they actually work out are very different. So we have a school system which is funded by the Department of Education, and then a skills system which is funded by the Department for the Economy. And what happens is that whenever you get to 16, there's essentially the schools will want obviously to keep and retain those young people for their own benefit, because they want them to stay on and do A levels or BTECs at the school. But then the college system is there, being funded by the Department for the Economy. So in a way, what we need is a unified education and skills system which sees the person as the one that we want to serve. And whereas at the minute we're serving the schools or we're serving the colleges, and that's not really what we're looking to do. They have an important role to play. I'm not trying to diminish the role of education, whether at school or in colleges or university, but what I am saying is the way in which we're currently structuring our system is leading to very suboptimal outcomes. And we need to see a more unified system which can incentivize a school to release someone who has the potential to become a brilliant apprentice, rather than hanging on to them for the sake of a number, or a sake of saying that they went to a certain university and then using that in your promotional material for the next round. Wouldn't it be great if we could have the schools saying, here are the number of apprentices that went on to these positions, this is what they're earning, and this is what they've avoided in terms of student fees, and this is the smile on their face. So
yeah. Okay, so we've still some way to go if only 10% in Northern Ireland are adopting the apprenticeship route. It's all about changing the messaging. It's all about changing society's view of what an apprentice actually is. And Hema, I know with PwC, people are actually, you know, there's probably a waiting list, is there, with you guys? I mean, there's a real kudos when you become an apprentice with PwC. But is there a key message that you would give to other employers joining today who, as I've said before, have not gone down this route yet?
I would say just at least try it for 1 year and you'll see how successful it can be. I think the key thing with apprenticeships is just getting your name out there, and as Richard has already said, it's just contacting the schools and making people aware that you are running the apprenticeships. So just, I would say, try it 1 year, see how it goes, and just make sure you front load the promotion so that when it comes to the recruitment time, there's a candidate list waiting to knock on your door. So yeah, that would be my advice, and just try it and see how it goes.
And Sean, what would you say to the employers gathered here today? Just explain to them exactly how this hands-on approach to working and learning helps you as a young person.
Well, I feel learning and understanding the theory side of things is so much easier, because whenever I am learning, I can see how it relates to the actual construction and how it is put into real work-life scenarios instead of being just words in the book. I feel that the apprenticeship scheme has just been the perfect kickstart to my career.
And tell me this, have you any regrets at all? And when you look at maybe what some of your friends are doing, do you ever compare each other's lives and think, oh, maybe I should have done that instead?
No regrets at all. No, definitely not. Some of my friends look on very envious, like, you know, they're in university maybe, and they realize they're going to be in debt coming out of it, and on the flip side of the scale, I'll be earning, you know, I'm still earning, and whereas they're just working a part-time job just to fill a gap, you know.
And in terms of where you'd like to see yourself maybe in 10 years, what's next for you, Sean?
Well, at the minute, I'm learning to be a site engineer on the construction project, obviously managing, supervising, setting out, but really 10 years time, I hope to be a project manager, a site manager, to take on a project myself, you know.
Yeah, you said that at the start, and yeah. We wish you every success to achieve that. I'm sure you absolutely will. We've come to the end of our webinar this morning. I hope you found it useful. Thank you so much to Business in the Community for hosting this event and for getting such great guests. And the proof is in the pudding here, folks. You know, it's working, and it's working really well. We need more employers to sign up. And it looks to me, as an onlooker today, like a win-win situation for everyone. Gordon, I'll leave the final word with you.
We need to build on this event today and have more events like this and engage with more employers. I think a lot of us as employers need more outreach. We in our own sector are doing it with our own contractors, and it's a selfish need. A lot of our contractors have been pinching our apprentices because they work closely with them. So we're now training for our apprentices to stop that process. So I think we've got to collaborate a lot more. We've got to collaborate also, as Richard had said, with the education sector and with the Department of the Economy and the Skills sector, to make sure there's much more of an integrated approach and remove all the barriers, because I think there's a lot of employers that want to use this process. If we can help with the barriers, I think we'll get more taking up the apprenticeship route, and ultimately there are lots of young people out there that we can reskill, and we can address the skills imbalance that exists, and everyone benefits: businesses, individuals, and the economy.
Gordon Parks, thank you very much. Emma Sean, thank you very much. Nicola, Maria, Richard, and of course, Sean, thank you so much for giving up your time today to fly the apprenticeship flag. And of course, if anybody would like more information, there are 4 handouts that you can download right now in the next minute. If not, you will receive them also in a follow-up email. And we'd love also to get your feedback on today's session. So if you could complete the survey, that would be extremely beneficial, and perhaps do it now or it might not get done, and it's invaluable to us. But thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. It is Apprenticeship Week. Find out more today, pick up the phone, and why wait? Thank you so much. Take care, everybody, and have a great rest of day. Bye-bye.
Bye.